The day I brought my baby home from the hospital, I stood in the nursery doorway, the one we had painted ourselves that pale yellow, the one with the little cloud mobile we had ordered online and argued about putting together at midnight, and I felt absolutely nothing. Not joy, not love, not the wave of gratitude everyone had promised me. Nothing. And I remember thinking, with this tiny, perfect creature asleep in my arms, what is wrong with me? Because from the outside, my life looked like everything. A beautiful home in a good neighborhood, a husband who showed up to every appointment, a healthy baby girl we had prayed for, planned for, waited 3 long years for. Flowers on the doorstep from people who loved us. Congratulations texts coming in every hour. My mother flying in from Atlanta with her arms full of casseroles and blessings. People kept saying the same thing over and over. They'd look at my daughter, then look at me and say, "You are so lucky. You have everything." And I kept smiling and saying, "I know, I really am." But behind that smile, behind those words, behind the casseroles and the yellow nursery and the cloud mobile, I was drowning. And nobody, not my OB, not my mother, not any of the pregnancy books I read cover to cover, not any of the mommy blogs I followed for 2 years, nobody had told me the truth about what was actually coming after the beautiful life arrived. Today, I am going to tell you everything they left out. The parts that happen after you check every box. After you get the home and the husband and the family that everyone told you was the finish line. The parts that can make you feel like a stranger in your own life, a ghost in your own body, invisible inside the love you worked so hard to build. And if you have ever even once looked at something beautiful and felt hollow inside, I need you to hear me say this. You are not broken. What happened to you has a name, and you are not ever, alone. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Now, let me take you back to where this story really begins. My name is Jennifer. I was 36 years old when I had my daughter, Lily. I want to start there with my age because it matters to this story. I was not a young, unprepared mother who got surprised by motherhood. I was a woman who had spent a decade becoming ready. I had done everything right, in the order that everyone told me to do things. I finished my degree in healthcare administration. I built a career I was proud of, 10 years at a hospital system in Charlotte, working my way up to a director-level position. I had benefits, a retirement account, a 5-year plan. I met Daniel at 31, a structural engineer with a laugh that filled up a room and a steadiness about him that made me feel safe in a way I had never felt before. We dated for 2 years. We were engaged for 1. We got married on a Saturday in October with 93 people watching and my grandmother weeping in the front row. We bought the house on Maplewood Drive 2 years after that. A 4-bedroom craftsman with a covered porch, an original fireplace, and a backyard big enough for the children we were planning to have. Then we started trying. I want to be honest about what that time cost us, because it is part of the story too. 14 months of trying the natural way, watching my cycle like a scientist, crying in bathroom stalls when the test came back negative again, then a referral to a specialist, then blood work, then monitoring, then a diagnosis: diminished ovarian reserve, spoken to me in a beige office by a doctor who was kind but clinical in the way that medical people sometimes have to be. 2 rounds of IUI. 1 round of IVF that did not work. A 2nd round that gave us 2 viable embryos. 1 transfer. 1 positive test. 1 heartbeat on the screen at 7 weeks that made Daniel put his face in his hands and sob in a way I had never seen him cry before and have not seen since. Lily Grace Hayes came into this world on a Tuesday morning in February, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, with a full head of hair and her father's nose and lungs that announced her presence to the entire maternity ward. She was perfect. She was ours. She was everything we had fought for. And I stood in the doorway of that yellow nursery with her in my arms, and I felt nothing. No, that is not quite right. I want to be more precise, because if you have felt this, vague words will not reach you. I felt a kind of underwater sensation, like I was watching my own life through glass. I could see that everything was beautiful. I could understand, in an intellectual way, that I was supposed to be overjoyed. I could locate, somewhere in my memory, the emotion I had felt when I imagined this moment for years. But I could not feel it. I could not touch it. It was on the other side of something I could not name. I kissed Lily's forehead. I laid her in her crib. I went to our bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and thought, something is wrong with me. Something has always been wrong with me, and now the whole world is about to find out. The books and the people had prepared me for the first 2 weeks. Everyone mentioned the baby blues. Oh, your hormones will crash after birth. You might cry for a few days. Totally normal. Totally temporary. My OB mentioned it at my 36-week appointment in the same breath she used to describe nipple cream. My mother mentioned it while packing my hospital bag. Even my coworker who had twins mentioned it over lunch once, laughing a little like it was a small inconvenience like forgetting your umbrella on a rainy day. So when I cried on day 3, I told myself, this is the baby blues. This is the hormone crash. This is normal. When I cried on day 7, I told myself, still normal. It can last 2 weeks. When I cried on day 14 and it had not lifted, I woke up that morning and felt the same gray weight pressing on my chest that I had felt every single morning since I brought Lily home. I told myself, give it another week. I gave it another week, and another after that. Here is what I need you to understand before I go further. This is one of the things they do not tell you. Postpartum depression does not always look like crying on the floor. It does not always look like being unable to get out of bed. It does not always look like the dramatic scenes in movies where the mother cannot care for her baby. Sometimes it looks like a woman who is up every morning, who is bathed and dressed, who shows up to the pediatrician and takes notes on the clipboard and asks smart questions and smiles at the nurses. Sometimes it looks like a woman who is doing everything right and surviving none of it. I was that woman. For 4 months, I was that woman. I fed Lily on schedule. I tracked her diapers in an app. I did the tummy time. I sang the songs. I held her while she screamed at 2 in the morning and 4 in the morning, etc. I patted her back with a steadiness that I did not feel anywhere inside myself. And when Daniel would walk in and say, "How are you doing? Are you okay?" I would look at him and say, "I'm tired, but I'm good. We're good." Because here is the thing about having everything, here is the other thing they do not tell you. When you have everything, you do not feel like you have permission to fall apart. What was I going to say? I am struggling? Struggling with what? I had the husband, I had the house, I had the healthy baby I had wanted more than anything in the world. I had a mother who flew in to help. I had a supportive job that gave me 12 weeks of leave. What right did I have to not be okay? What did I have to be depressed about? Those questions, that logic, kept me silent for 4 months. Maybe it has kept you silent too. Let me tell you exactly what postpartum depression felt like for me. Not in clinical language, in the real language. It felt like waking up every single morning and having to remind myself to care. Not about Lily. I always cared about Lily. That love was always there even when I could not feel it, like a pilot light that stays lit even when you cannot see the flame. But caring about myself. Caring about what I ate, caring about whether I showered, caring about the conversation Daniel was trying to have with me at dinner, caring about the friends who texted, caring about anything beyond the next task in front of me. It felt like existing in a fog so consistent that I stopped noticing it was fog. I thought that was just what life was now. I thought this was motherhood, this gray, mechanical trudging. I thought everyone felt this way and they were just better at pretending than I was. It felt like being angry for no reason I could name, not at Lily, never at Lily, but at Daniel, who was doing nothing wrong, at my mother who was trying to help, at the sunlight that came in through the bedroom curtains too bright and too cheerful, at the sound of my neighbor's laughter in the driveway, a pure source, less rage that frightened me because I had never been an angry person before and I did not know where it was coming from or how to make it stop. It felt like watching my own life as if I were a stranger observing it. I remember a specific Tuesday afternoon. Lily was asleep. The house was quiet. The light was coming through the kitchen window in that golden late afternoon way, the way I had always loved, and I stood in the kitchen, looked around at the home we had worked for, at the photos on the refrigerator, at the baby monitor glowing green on the counter, and I thought, whose life is this? Not in a scary way, not in a dangerous way, just in the way of someone who has become a stranger to herself and is noticing it for the first time. And it felt like a grief I could not justify. That is the one that still surprises me when I talk about it. This grief. This heavy, persistent sadness that sat in my chest like something left behind after a loss, except I had not lost anything. I had only gained. I had Lily, I had Daniel, I had the life. But I was grieving. I understand now what I was grieving for. I was grieving the version of myself I had been before. I was grieving sleep and solitude and the feeling of my own body as my own. I was grieving the freedom to be unhappy out loud without feeling like a terrible mother for it. And none of the books said, by the way, grief is part of this too. By the way, you can love your baby completely and still mourn the life that existed before she arrived. By the way, both of those things can be true at the same time, and it does not make you a monster. Nobody told me that. 1. It can start weeks or months after the birth. I need to say this loudly because it is the single biggest reason women do not catch it in themselves. Most people believe postpartum depression is something that descends immediately, that it is a crash that happens in those raw first days after birth. And sometimes it does happen that way, but for me, it crept in slowly, like a tide. I was fine, genuinely, if exhaustedly, fine for the first 2 weeks. The baby blues came and went. I grieved and cried, and then I thought, okay, I got through it. I am on the other side. By week 6, I noticed I was not bouncing back the way I expected. By week 8, I noticed the fog. By week 10, I noticed the anger. By month 3, I was functioning but empty in a way that scared me. Postpartum depression can develop up to 12 months after giving birth. And because nobody told me that, I kept waiting for it to go away on its own, convinced it was just tiredness, just adjustment, just the cost of new motherhood. If you are 6 months postpartum and something still feels deeply off, please do not talk yourself out of what you know. The timeline is longer than they tell you. 2. Loving your baby and having postpartum depression are not opposites. This was the one I carried the most shame about, so I want to be very direct. I loved Lily. I loved her from the moment I knew she existed. I loved her through every needle and every monitoring appointment and every heartbreaking failed cycle. I loved her through 41 weeks of pregnancy and 30 hours of labor. I loved her in that yellow nursery even when I could not feel anything. But somewhere in my mind, fed by years of cultural messaging about what a mother is supposed to feel, I had convinced myself that if I was not overflowing with joy every moment of the day, it meant I did not love her enough, that the depression was a sign of something broken in my bond with my daughter. It was not. Postpartum depression is a medical condition caused by a massive hormonal shift in your brain and body after birth. It is not a measure of your love. It is not a reflection of your worthiness as a mother. It is not a sign that you made a mistake or that your child will suffer because of what you feel. You can be a wonderful, devoted, fiercely loving mother and have postpartum depression. Those two things coexist every single day in millions of women. Nobody tells you that, so you carry the shame of both. 3. It lives in your body, not just your mind. I did not connect the physical symptoms to what was happening in my mind for a long time. The exhaustion that went beyond tiredness, the kind where you slept for 6 hours and woke up feeling as though you had not slept at all, your limbs heavy, your eyes gritty, your body demanding more rest that no amount of rest could give. The headaches that came on every afternoon like clockwork. The muscle tension in my shoulders and jaw that I carried so constantly, I stopped noticing it. The appetite that swung wildly, weeks where I forgot to eat and weeks where I could not stop. I went back to my doctor at 8 weeks postpartum for my checkup. She asked me how I was feeling. I said, tired but good. She checked my incision, checked my blood pressure, asked about breastfeeding, and sent me home. She did not ask about my mood. She did not use the words postpartum depression. She did not give me a screening questionnaire. I do not say this to blame her. I say it to tell you that the system is not designed to catch this, which means you have to catch it yourself. And you cannot catch it if nobody tells you what to look for. The body keeps the score. When your mind cannot tell you clearly that something is wrong, your body will try. Listen to it. 4. People around you will accidentally make it worse. The people who loved me said the wrong things constantly. They meant no harm. They were working from their own fear, their own limited language, their own desire to see me okay. You should be so grateful, said with a smile, always, by people who love me. And every time it landed like a small stone thrown at a bruise. Enjoy every moment, it goes so fast. And I would think, internally, I am not enjoying this moment. I am surviving this moment. And now I feel guilty about that too. Just sleep when the baby sleeps. The practical advice that assumes the problem is simply logistical, as if the issue were scheduling and not a neurochemical crisis happening inside me. Have you tried getting some fresh air? Once, after I had told my mother very carefully that I had been struggling. Fresh air for postpartum depression? I want to say something with as much gentleness as I can manage. The people around a woman who is struggling postpartum are not the villains. They are also not trained. They have also absorbed a culture that does not talk honestly about this. They are reaching for comfort with the only tools they have. But part of what keeps women silent is the fear of these responses. The fear of being told to be grateful. The fear of being given fresh air instead of treatment. The fear of being seen as dramatic, as weak, as ungrateful, as unfit. If you have a woman in your life who is newly postpartum and you are watching this, please hear me. The most healing thing you can say is not advice. It is, I am here. Tell me what this feels like. I believe you. That is it. That is the whole script. 5 words and I believe you. 5. The intrusive thoughts are not who you are. I almost did not include this truth. I had this conversation with myself for a long time about whether to say it out loud. I am saying it because when I finally heard another woman say it to me, it was the single most relieving moment of the entire experience. So I am paying it forward. Around week 8, I started having intrusive thoughts. If you know what those are, you just felt something in your chest. If you do not know what they are, let me explain. Intrusive thoughts are involuntary, unwanted thoughts or mental images that feel disturbing and completely at odds with who you are and what you want. They are a documented clinical symptom of postpartum OCD and postpartum depression, and they are far more common than anyone talks about. Mine were fears, vivid, specific, unwanted images of something terrible happening to Lily. I would be carrying her down the stairs, and my mind would flash an image I did not want. I would be bathing her, and a thought would arrive that horrified me. I would be at the top of a parking structure, and I would have to take 3 steps back because my brain sent a terror I could not explain. And every single time I thought, something is wrong with me. I am a danger. I am not safe to be near my own daughter. What kind of mother thinks these things? I carried that shame alone for 6 weeks. Here is what a therapist eventually told me that changed everything. The horror you feel at the thought, that immediate visceral revulsion, is proof that the thought is not you. A person who actually intends harm does not feel horror at the idea of harm. The horror is your love for your child expressing itself as fear. The thought is intrusive precisely because it is the opposite of what you want. I need you to hear that, especially if you are sitting somewhere watching this and carrying this secret. Intrusive thoughts are not confessions. They are not desires. They are a symptom. They are treatable. And having them does not make you a bad mother. It makes you a human being whose nervous system is overwhelmed and reaching for help. Please tell someone. Please tell a doctor. You do not have to carry this alone. 6. Your relationship will be changed by this, and that is not a failure. Daniel and I had a good marriage. I say that in the past tense not because our marriage ended, it did not, but because the marriage we have now is different from the marriage we had before Lily arrived. And for a long time I thought that difference was a wound. I understand now that it was a growth, but in the thick of it, the change felt like loss. Daniel did not know how to help me because I was not telling him what was wrong. I was performing okay in front of him the same way I was performing okay in front of everyone else. And because I looked functional, because I was feeding the baby and answering emails and making dinner, he did not know to push through the performance and find the truth underneath. There were nights I lay next to him in the dark and felt more alone than I had ever felt in my life. Not because he was absent, because I had made myself absent and did not know how to come back. We stopped talking about anything real. Not from cruelty, from exhaustion, from the 1,000 logistics of a new baby, from my careful maintenance of the surface of things. He would ask how I was, and I would say fine, and fine began to mean nothing, and we began to relate to each other around the baby instead of to each other. I am telling you this because I think a lot of women add this to their list of evidence that something is wrong with them. My relationship is suffering, it must be because I am failing. Postpartum depression affects the whole family system. Your partner is also adjusting to a seismic shift in your shared life. The distance that grows is not a sign that your love is broken, it is a sign that two people need more support than new parenthood usually comes with. The relationship does not have to be a casualty, but it needs honesty. It needs you to say, I am not okay, and I need you to know that, and I need your help to get better. Daniel, when I finally told him, when I finally said all of it out loud, the fog and the anger and the intrusive thoughts and the grief and the hollow feeling in the nursery, he did not run. He sat at the kitchen table with me, and he cried too. And he said, "Why didn't you tell me sooner? I thought I was losing you and I didn't know why." He had been watching me disappear for months and had not known how to name it either. We had been drowning in separate silences 2 feet apart from each other. The conversation that began that night at the kitchen table saved our marriage. And it started with the truth. 7. Asking for help is not weakness. It is the bravest thing you will ever do. I grew up watching women manage. That is the verb in my family. In a lot of families, manage. You managed the children and the household and the job and the aging parents and the grief and the health scares and the disappointments, and you managed them quietly, and if you cried in the car or in the shower, and you came out looking like nothing had happened, and everyone called that strength. I believed that. I believed it completely until the believing of it nearly broke me. Asking for help is not a collapse. Asking for help is not a betrayal of the women who came before you. Asking for help is not an admission that you cannot handle your life. Asking for help is the moment you decide that you and your child deserve more than survival. It is the moment you say, I am worth the same care I give to everyone else. It is the hardest and the bravest sentence in the English language, and it sounds like this. I am not okay, and I need help. 7 words. That is all. 7 words that I could not say for 4 months. And when I finally said them to Daniel, on that night at the kitchen table, with Lily asleep upstairs in her yellow nursery, those 7 words began to pull me back to myself. It was a Wednesday night in June. Lily was 4 months old. Daniel had been working late all week, a project deadline, completely legitimate, nothing wrong. My mother had gone back to Atlanta 3 weeks before. I was alone in the house with the baby most days, working remotely from the living room floor while she played on her mat beside me, and the isolation had been building like pressure behind a wall that was already cracking. That night, Lily would not stop crying. She was not sick. She had been fed. Her diaper was clean. She was simply doing what babies do, cycling through their needs and their discomforts and their confusions about the overwhelming fact of existing in the world. She was 4 months old. She was doing nothing wrong. But I had been awake for 19 hours. I had not eaten a real meal in 2 days. I had not spoken to another adult since a 3-minute phone call with Daniel at lunch. And something in me, some last load-bearing wall that had been holding everything up for 4 months, finally gave. I laid Lily in her crib. She was safe. I made sure of that. And then I slid down the wall in the hallway outside her nursery, put my face in my hands, and I did not cry. I was past crying. I sat in that hallway and I felt something I had not felt before and have not felt since a complete absence of anything. A blankness where my sense of self used to be. A feeling of being so far away from my own life that I could not locate the path back. And for the first time, I want to be honest here, because honesty is the only thing that helps anyone for the first time, I thought. I do not want to be here anymore. I want to harm myself. It was not that specific. It was more like a deep, exhausted wish to simply cease, to stop being the person responsible for everything, to step out of the weight of it for just one moment of relief. I recognized it for what it was. I had worked in healthcare long enough to know the language, and I sat in that hallway and I said out loud, to no one, to the empty house, to whatever was listening, "I need help. I am not okay. I need help." Then I picked up my phone and I called Daniel. He was home in 22 minutes. I know because I watched the clock while I sat on the hallway floor and waited. He came in and he found me sitting there and he did not say a word. He sat down on the floor next to me. He took my hand. And we sat there in the hallway outside our daughter's room while she fussed and then settled and then finally fell asleep. And somewhere in the quiet that followed, I began, haltingly, to tell him the truth. All of it. 4 months of it. And Daniel, this man I had been protecting from my own suffering for 4 months, Daniel held my hand and he listened. And when I was done, he said, "We're going to fix this. You're not alone in this. I am right here." Those 3 sentences were the beginning of my life coming back. The road back. I want to tell you what recovery actually looked like, because the narrative around postpartum recovery is almost as misleading as the narrative around postpartum depression itself. It was not one breakthrough moment. It was not a single therapy session or the right medication or a nap that fixed everything. It was a slow, non-linear, 2 steps forward, 1 step back process that took about 8 months from that night in the hallway to the morning I woke up and recognized myself in the mirror again. The first thing that helped was my OB. The morning after the hallway night, Daniel called my OB's office and got me an appointment for that same afternoon. I walked in and I told the truth for the first time to a medical professional. I said, "I have been struggling for 4 months. I think I have postpartum depression. I had thoughts last night that frightened me and I need help." She listened. She did not dismiss me. She used the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale, a screening questionnaire that takes about 5 minutes and that I later learned is supposed to be administered at every postpartum visit. My score indicated moderate to severe depression. She referred me to a perinatal mental health specialist that same day. If your doctor does not listen, get a different doctor. That is not me being dramatic. That is me telling you that your life is worth more than a provider who does not take you seriously. The second thing that helped was medication. I want to say this clearly because I know the stigma around it, and I know the fear, especially if you are breastfeeding or if you have been raised in a culture that treats psychiatric medication as weakness or spiritual failure. I was prescribed a low-dose SSRI. It took about 3 weeks to begin working, and those 3 weeks felt very long. But by week 4, I noticed something. The fog was lighter. Not gone lighter. I could see through it sometimes. I could touch the edges of emotions that had been on the other side of the glass for months. Medication did not fix me. It gave me the neurological floor from which I could do the actual work of healing. Those are 2 very different things, but that floor was necessary. I could not have built anything without it. The third thing that helped was a therapist who specialized in perinatal mental health. Not every therapist is equipped for postpartum. I saw a general therapist for 3 sessions before my perinatal specialist, and while she was kind, she did not know the specific terrain of postpartum anxiety, the particular shape of new mother guilt, the way identity dissolves and reconstitutes after birth. My perinatal therapist, I will call her Dr. Karen, was the person who named the intrusive thoughts for me, who told me they were not confessions, who gave me language for what I had been experiencing that finally made it something I could look at directly instead of something I had to hide from. Language matters. Being named matters. If you have been living inside an experience for months with no words for it, someone giving you the words is an act of rescue. The fourth thing that helped was telling my people the truth. My mother was the hardest. She belongs to a generation that absorbed a message about motherhood as suffering in silence as a form of love. When I told her what had been happening, she went very quiet. And then she said something that surprised me. She said, "Jennifer, I think I had this too, after your brother, but I didn't know what it was. I just thought I was going crazy. I am so sorry I didn't know how to name it for you." We cried together on the phone for 30 minutes. 3 generations of women in my family, my grandmother, my mother, me carrying the same undiagnosed, unnamed, untreated experience. Passing the silence down like an inheritance none of us asked for. The silence ends with the truth. It ends with naming it out loud. It ends with stories like this one. And the 5th thing that helped, the one I want to sit with for a moment, was community. A friend of Daniel's from work, a woman named Courtney, who I had met at their Christmas party 2 years before, texted me around month 5 to check in. We had not been close, but she had had a baby the year before me, and somehow she knew to reach out, and when I answered honestly instead of with the usual, "Doing great, thanks," she called me within minutes. We talked for 2 hours. She told me her story. I told her mine. By the end of the call, I felt for the first time in months that I was not uniquely broken, that I had not failed at something other women managed easily, that the darkness I had been living in was not a personal character flaw but a common human experience that was simply never talked about in polite company. Courtney and I are best friends now. Her daughter and Lily are in the same dance class. That phone call, that honest, specific, "I will tell you the real thing and you can tell me the real thing," conversation was one of the most healing things that happened to me. Find your Courtney. If you are that friend to someone, be Courtney. The world needs more women who call. Lily is 3 years old now. She is chaotic and brilliant and obsessed with dinosaurs and completely convinced that she can fly if she jumps from a high enough surface. She has her father's laugh and my stubbornness and a way of looking at you when you talk to her that makes you feel like the most important person in the room. I love her in a way that I could not have articulated at 8 weeks postpartum. Not because I love her more. I have come to understand that the love was always there, just trapped behind the fog. But because I know her now. Because I am present with her now in a way I could not be when I was so busy surviving. I am a different mother than I expected to be. Softer in some ways, sterner in others. Less attached to the perfect execution of everything and more invested in the real texture of our days together. Less afraid of the hard moments and more grateful for the ordinary ones. I am also a different woman than I was before Lily. I do not say that as a complaint. I say it as the plain truth that nobody prepares you for. You do not come through the experience of new motherhood, certainly not through the experience of postpartum depression and emerge unchanged. That is not the deal. The deal is that you emerge and you are different, and with time and honesty and help, different can be better. I am less interested in performing okay. I have lost the patience for it. When someone asks me how I am, I tell them. When I am struggling, I say so. When I need something, I ask for it. That might sound like a small thing. For someone who spent 4 months lying to everyone she loved, it is a revolution. I am back in therapy, not crisis therapy, but the ongoing kind. The kind where you go not because you are falling apart, but because you are committed to understanding yourself clearly. Dr. Karen is still my therapist. We meet once a month. It is one of the best investments I make in my family. My marriage is stronger than it has ever been. Not because the postpartum depression was good for us, it was not. It was hard and it cost us things we have had to rebuild. But because we came through it together, which means we know now what we can come through together. That knowledge is its own kind of security. Daniel and I talk about having a second child sometimes. The conversation is complicated in ways I will not pretend otherwise. But we would go in differently with a postpartum plan already in place before the birth, with a therapist already on standby, with the language already available to me, so that if the fog returns, I can name it the moment it arrives, instead of 4 months in. I would also go in knowing what I know now, that asking for help before I need it is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is love for my child and my family, and most importantly, for myself. I started a small group for new mothers in my neighborhood, nothing formal, just a standing Sunday morning gathering at my house with whoever needs to come. We have coffee. We talk honestly. Nobody performs okay. Nobody competes over milestones or routines. We just tell the truth to each other and listen. 6 women have told me in that living room that what they heard in that space was the first time anyone had named what they were experiencing. 6 women who had been performing okay in their cars and in their showers and in the hallways outside their children's rooms. 6 is not enough. It is never going to be enough. Which is why I am here, telling this story to a camera in my living room, talking to a woman I have never met who might be sitting somewhere watching this at 2 in the morning with a baby on her chest and a silence she does not know how to break. This is me reaching through the screen. This is me saying, I see you. I believe you. You are not broken. I want to end this story with something a little different. I want to write a letter. Not to the version of me that was struggling in that hallway she is taken care of, she found her way through. But to you, to whoever you are, wherever you are watching this from, whatever time it is, whatever weight you are carrying right now that you have not told anyone about yet. Dear you do not have to earn the right to struggle. The fact that your life looks good from the outside does not mean you are not allowed to be not okay on the inside. Beauty and pain coexist. That is not a contradiction. That is just what being human sometimes looks like. Whatever it is you are feeling that you have not said out loud, the fog, the anger, the hollowness, the thoughts that frightened you, the grief you cannot explain, the loneliness you feel in a house full of people you love, that thing you have been carrying alone in the car and in the showmere and in the hallways outside your children's rooms. It has a name, and it has a treatment. And you deserve both. You are not a bad mother. Your love for your child is not diminished by your pain. It is made more remarkable by it, because you have been showing up every single day, even while drowning. And that is not weakness. That is extraordinary. The people in your life who love you, even the ones who say the wrong things, even the ones who hand you fresh air instead of answers they would want to know. Not to judge you, not to take your child from you, not to confirm their worst fears about you. They would want to know because you matter to them, and right now you are disappearing in front of them, and they do not know why. Please tell someone, a partner, a friend, a doctor, a stranger in a Sunday morning coffee group, a comment in a YouTube video at 2 in the morning, if that is all you have right now. But say it out loud. Say, I am not okay. Say, I need help, and then let someone help you. You carried a life into the world. You have been carrying everyone else since the moment you did. It is time to let someone carry some of this for you. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are a woman in the middle of something very hard, doing the best you possibly can. And the best you possibly can right now is to reach for help. The other side of this exists. I am standing on it. And I will tell you, with everything in me, that it is worth the fight to get there, with love and with all the honesty I have. Jennifer. If this story reached you today, if any part of it felt like something you needed to hear, I want to ask you to do 3 things. First, drop a comment below. Tell me what city or state you're watching from. Tell me if any part of this resonated with you. Your comments genuinely create community. Here, every person who shares their truth in that comment section is reaching through the screen to someone else who needs to know they are not alone. Second, share this video. Think of the woman in your life who might need to hear this, the new mother you have been worried about, the friend who keeps saying she is fine when her eyes say something else, the daughter, the sister, the coworker. Forward it without a note if you have to. Sometimes the right video at the right moment changes everything. And third, please subscribe to Natural Echoes Stories if you have not already. We tell stories like this one real, honest, complicated human stories because the world needs more truth and less performance. Every new subscriber tells us that this work matters and helps us reach more people who need it. If you are currently struggling with postpartum depression or any perinatal mental health challenge, please reach out to Postpartum Support International. Their helpline and online resources are available in the United States, and they have trained volunteers who understand exactly what you are going through. You are not alone. You never were.